Cool. So I'll be covering MySQL, SQL, and a little bit about data modeling, database design. So it's okay if you guys are not aware of what is SQL, what is MySQL, what is data modeling, what is database design. So the whole course that I'll be taking, it is related to this thing itself. So it'll be around 30 hours of sessions. So we'll try to cover as much as possible. I'll try to keep it as simple as possible so that you guys try to understand it. Okay. So before I start, let me give you a brief introduction about myself. So my name is Guruprasad. You guys can call me Guru. So I'm born and brought up in Karnataka. I've done my initial schooling from childhood to currently my engineering and all in Karnataka only. I'm currently working as a software engineer in Bangalore. So I did my computer science and uh, BTech from NI Mysore. So if you know, Mysore is a very popular city for Dasara. It's very famous for Mysore Palace and Mysore Dasara. They conduct one of the biggest Dasaras in India. So I studied there. I did my computer science engineering from there. I graduated in 2021, and then I've done my 12th till 12th from a place called Bijapur in Karnataka. So if you would have read your history textbooks in class 6th or 7th, you would know it's like the largest dome in India is present in this city. It's called Gol Gumbaz, if people know. So I did my 12th there. It was from a military school. So my hobbies and all, if you'd ask, I am an active quizzer. I participated in a lot of quizzes. I attend a lot of quizzes. uh, in India, like Tata conducts one of the biggest quiz, that is Tata Crucibles Business Quiz. So we were winners and Mysore Zonal. I've participated in a lot of tech quizzes and all. I've also uh, secured an All India rank of 4 and UPSC NDAs. So this is away from what today's topic, not coding related, but yeah, when I was in my college, college days, I was mostly motivated to join defense, and I had given this exam called as National Defense Academy. So I'd secured an All India ranking of 4. So my hobbies, I like reading books, traveling, going for jog, running, etc., etc. Okay. So if talking about my experience, so I started working from 2020. So it was a period of lockdown, COVID started, and also there was not no college and all. So I spent my third year and fourth year almost, third year end onwards, I started working. So I've done a lot of internships and a full time. So I was a intern at Microsoft in from May to July. It was in Bangalore itself. So I was a part of team called Azure Storage. So I was a part of data migration team. I used to work on C Sharp and different data processing languages. After that, I worked as again a full stack developer intern at a place called Clinic Healthcare. So this is a Bangalore based startup where they were trying to move all, like how we have Zomato, Swiggy and all that. So similarly, it is a effort to get doctors online. So you give a call and then the doctor will speak to you, something of that sort. So I worked there for around 3-4 months. So it was basically on Mern Stack and React, Node and all. So then after that, I joined Microsoft again as a software intern for again another 6-7 months, and then I've been working as a software engineer for, it's almost been 1.5 year. So I'm also a mentor at Newton School. So it is one of same similar. I teach data structure algorithms. I solve doubts of students and all. So this is my experience. So if you guys want to find me on social networking sites or all, so these are the links. It's just your guru at the end of all these websites. So moving to the actual course, what we are going to do throughout these 15 classes probably. So I'll try to finish it off in 15 classes. So we will initially start with what is SQL, what is structured query language, and so there are different topics in SQL. So what is a database? What is a table? How do we classify different commands in SQL? Data definition language, data manipulation language, data control language, TCL and all. Okay, and we'll discuss about what are data types, what are operators, what are keys, primary key, foreign key, composite, unique, and so on. And then we'll also talk about integrity constraints, joins, queries. So if you take a look at this, this is what we'll be doing. So this is like part one of your SQL. The other part is where we'll be discussing about data modeling and database design. So how I've divided the courses, once you are able to uh, comfortably write SQL queries, once you're able to comfortably create tables, modify tables, insert into a table, understand what is primary key, what is foreign key, you're able to write queries, you're able to do joins. We will go to the next stage, that is designing database, designing such kind of databases. So what do I mean by designing databases? So anywhere, whenever you're dealing with any real life projects, it is not one single table. I'll let you, I'll when we go ahead, I'll tell you what a table is, but it is not just one single item. So it's a huge system. If you take for example, let's say Book My Show. So Book My Show is a website where people can go and book tickets, right? But there it is not just ticket booking. So there they need to have a list of movies that are currently running. They need to have different users, they need to have different theaters. So designing all of this and storing it in a database is not easy. First thing is it is not easy, and second thing is you should do it right. If you don't do it right, it will be very difficult for you to use it properly in the future. So that is where data modeling and database design comes in. So what we will do here is we will take certain examples. We will first try to understand how data modeling happens in real life. So how it is done in the industry. What all are the steps that we follow? What are different entities? What are regular entities, strong entities, and what are different types of relationships? And then we'll talk about normalizing, and we'll talk about ER modeling, entity relationship modeling, and then we'll take few case studies and then discuss about them, and at the end we will try to design few real life databases. We'll pick up some examples and we will try to create a whole database for them, all different tables that are necessary for the system to start running. Let us take for example your local library. So in olden days what used to happen is, if you take any library, libraries used to have catalogs, right? You might have seen in old pictures, they draw huge boxes out and then they have different letter. It's like a letter. On that letter they have written uh, so like they have different genre, let's say comedy, science fiction, horror, literature, whatever told together, autobiography, biography, and all. So in that they would write different where this book belongs, where this book belongs. So for a librarian it is very difficult to keep track of all these books, right? So let's say you have 10 books in your library, it is very easy for you. You will write it in your ledger, you'll write it in your notebook that okay, person A is has taken this book, person B has taken this book, he'll return it after these many days. Or if somebody comes to you and asks where is art of living book, okay, so then you'll look into your book and you'll tell to the person that okay, this is in this row, this column, go over there and read it. So that is easy. But take for example something which is very big. Let us take for example National Library in New Delhi. Okay, so that library will have huge amount of books, right? It can range into 10,000, 20,000 books. So now if I want to store this books, store all of this into a normal notebook or normal account keeping books are there, right? Ledgers, that what we call. So it is very difficult, right? So that is where what we can make use of is we can try to store this online. Okay, so the storage part is called as DBMS. So what is a DBMS? DBMS stands for Database Management System. So now what our librarian will do is, our librarian will go store all the information related to books in this database management system. It will have the list of books, it will have how many books are there, it will have what is the inventory, like this book, how many books are there in the library, how many people have taken this book for rent. It will also have how many books are there in this category, how many books are there in a different genre, and so on and so forth. So this way what happens is, let us say now the librarian wants to know which book is in demand. Recently Ankur Wariku had released a book, right? What is it? Do Epic Shit. So you would have seen that book was trending on Twitter and also everywhere. So how will a librarian know कि कौन सी book ज़्यादा, which book is in sale, which book is very popular? So he can write a query and write a query and identify, okay, this book is getting sold very fast, so I think I have to restock this book. So similarly, a lot of queries like this. He can see how many books are remaining in the library. He can find out what is the number of books that were rented today. So all of this becomes very easy when you have a database management system. So that is what it becomes easier to create, read, and update, create, read, update, and delete. So let us say you want to add a book, you want to delete a book, you want to read a book, or you want to add a user to the library. So it becomes very easy. So what is database management system? It is a place where we store data and then use it. Okay. So how do we talk to this database management system? So you have a place where you're storing data. How will I talk to this? I will talk to this using SQL. So that is structured query language. So basically what is SQL? SQL is a language that is used to interact with the database management system and use retrieve information stored in database management system. Okay. In plain simple terms, that is what is a difference between a DBMS, a database management system, and a SQL. SQL is like a language which is used to talk to DBMS. Okay, we will go ahead. So real life uses of database management systems. So I was just talking about library, right? Not just library, everywhere that you see as of today, we use database management systems because whatever data you store online, right? Everything needs to be persisted. What I mean persisted, everything needs to be stored somewhere, right? So where is it stored? It is stored in database management system. So there are different things. How you store a normal row versus how you store a user's data versus how you might store a movie, how you might store a image, or how you might store a MP4 file. But most of the places for storing information, we use database management systems. Like the examples that I've given here in banking. If you go to SBI Bank, let's say, how will they keep track of how much money is in this person's bank account? Let's say you go to an ATM and withdraw, then they have to reduce that in the table saying, okay, this person has withdrawn this much amount, so make it this much now. Retail sector, what do I mean by retail sector? Amazon, Flipkart, Snapdeal, all these, Zomato, Swiggy, all these, right? So they also need to maintain inventory. They need to maintain the list of products that are there in their company. They need to maintain the list of products that are being sold. They need to maintain a list of all the items that they have. So all of this is again stored in DBMS. So I think the example should be self-explanatory. In healthcare, we use in transportation, we use everywhere, wherever we need to store data, we are using database management systems. So what are different types of database management systems? So just now I told you we use DBMS to store data. I took the example of library and told you I'm going to use DBMS to store data. But not everything is same, right? Just like I'd given you an example. Movie, let's say a video file is totally different from an audio file. And an audio file is totally different from your marks card. Let's say you have your marks card in your school and it will only contain like numbers. But whereas image is a different thing, photo is a different thing, video is a different thing. So to store different types of items, we have different types of database management systems. It is just like this. So let's say if you go to your kitchen, your mom has different containers, right? So let's say she has a container for storing rice. She has a container for storing grains. She has a container for storing wheat. She will not go and mix two things into one, right? Will she go and mix rice and wheat into a same container? एक ही डब्बे में, will she go and put same rice and wheat in one box itself? No, right? So she'll separate them, right? So that is what we also do with data. We try to use different databases for different types of needs. So for different types of needs, we'll use different databases. So to just give an example, uh, relational databases. So this whole session, I mean the whole topic that I'm going to cover in this 15 classes will be mostly focusing on relational databases. So I'll tell you what a relational database is, but just keep in your mind, back of your mind, that whenever I'll talk about in future, whenever I talk about database management systems, until explicitly specified, it is relational database management system. Okay, so you might have heard of the examples that are there here for relational MySQL. Sorry, so MySQL and Oracle are very popular databases. Postgres is also there. So just like relational, we have hierarchical databases, network databases, object-oriented databases, document, columnar, NoSQL, and in-memory. I'll tell you one by one what are all of these, then we will go ahead. Okay. So what is a relational database? So relational database is made up of tables. So you can see here, right? This is taking an example of a school. You can consider school itself, and school where student you would have your roll numbers in class, right? Roll number 1, roll number 2, 3, 4, and their names are there, their ages are there, and then there is again who's the teacher. So you have this is for a subject table, and then you have a mapping between subject and student saying this student has got this much marks and all. So you don't need to worry about what does all this mapping mean as of now. So just to give an example, what is a relational database? In relational database, we use tables to store data, and we have mapping between one table and other table. So there is some kind of relation. The name itself suggests, right? A relational. So there is some kind of mapping between one table to other table. That is why it's called a relational database. So hierarchical DBMS. So what do you mean by hierarchical DBMS? We took example of student, right? We took example of student tables, the previous example. So here there was no hierarchy in it as such. Everybody, all the students are equal, right? But there might come places where you don't want to store data in a table. Instead, you might want to store it like a tree. Like just for example, let's say you have your college. So college will have this exact doesn't show it clear. So you'll have administration is one department, or for academics is one department. So for administration, you have administration officer, and academic you'll have principal or headmaster, like that. And under academics, you'll have again teachers. So under teachers, you will have maybe class teacher who has a class, and under class you will have students. One, so it is like a whole tree, right? So it is hierarchy, like ऊपर से नीचे तक different. It is the data is flowing from top to bottom, and that hierarchy has some meaning in it. Like let's take for example your family tree. So if you go and ask your parents who their parents were, who their parents were, and if you try to construct a family tree, right, it will start somewhere with your great great grandfather, and then he would have had a wife, and then they would have had 2 3 kids, their kids, their kids, their kids. You will come and end up somewhere almost down. पूरा नीचे तक आपका नाम आएगा. So that is how you can uh, so, that is how it is we store data in hierarchical format as well. Okay, so hierarchical DBMS is one such, and then network DBMS. तो अगर आप hierarchical देखोगे और network देखोगे ना, तो यहाँ पे what is the difference? So in hierarchical there is only one way. ऊपर से नीचे आ रहा है, कॉलेज से डिपार्टमेंट, डिपार्टमेंट से कोर्स, कोर्स से थ्योरी. बट इन नेटवर्क इफ यू सी, दिस इज अनदर एग्जांपल. ये और ये एक दूसरा एग्जांपल है वेयर देयर इज अ स्टोर. स्टोर के अंदर कस्टमर है, मैनेजर है, सेल्समैन है, एंड कस्टमर ऑर्डर्स दे सकता है, सेल्समैन ऑर्डर्स देखता है और फिर आइटम्स भी देखता है. लेकिन एक से दो दो आइटम्स के पास कनेक्शन है. ठीक है, ये ऑर्डर्स, ये देखो सेल्समैन से दो दो आइटम चल रही है, और मैनेजर से, मैनेजर एंड कस्टमर ये दोनों एक आइटम को पॉइंट कर रहा है. बट यहाँ पे हायरार्किकल में देखोगे तो ऐसे नहीं होता है. तो इसमें एक फ्लो होता है, और फिर नेटवर्क डीबीएमएस में इट इज हायरार्किकल, plus you can have any extra pointings as well, mappings between one and another. Okay, so this is what is a network DBMS. So there is another kind of DBMS called document DBMS. So the famous examples are MongoDB. सुना होगा आपने सब. MongoDB is one of a document databases. तो यहाँ पे क्या होता है, जैसे कि यहाँ पे हम नेटवर्क वे में स्टोर कर रहे थे, यहाँ पे ट्री जैसे स्टोर कर रहे थे, और फिर यहाँ पे टेबल्स में स्टोर कर रहे थे. तो यहाँ पे डेटा फाइल्स में स्टोर होता है. तो you'll have a name of the file, and then the data is stored as a file. So that way, if you see, if you take the simplest form, even your folders are like document databases. अगर आप फोल्डर बनाओगे, फोल्डर के अंदर तो आप फाइल से स्टोर कर रहे होंगे ना. So document database is one of them. Then there are columnar databases. So If you have heard of the name Azure Tables is a columnar databases. तो यहाँ पे क्या डिफरेंस होता है? तो MySQL रिलेशनल डेटाबेसेस ना, रिलेशनल डेटाबेसेस और रो डेटाबेसेस. तो यहाँ पे क्या होता है, एक एक रो को एक बार सेव करते हैं. तो फर्स्ट रो इज सेव्ड, सेकंड रो इज सेव्ड डिफरेंटली, थर्ड रो इज सेव्ड डिफरेंटली, फोर्थ रो इज सेव्ड डिफरेंटली, दे आर स्टोर्ड टुगेदर. बट इन कॉलमनार डेटाबेसेस एक एक कॉलम स्टोर होता है. तो आईडी अलग से स्टोर हो रहा है, नेम अलग से स्टोर हो रहा है, सिटी अलग से स्टोर हो रहा है, कंट्री अलग से स्टोर हो रहा है, और ऑर्डर नंबर अलग से स्टोर हो रहा है. सो यहाँ पे कॉलम वाइज स्टोर हो रहा है और फिर रो में रो वाइज स्टोर हो रहा है. तो columnar database is one such kind of a database. Okay. So as I was saying, we will only focus on relational database management systems. So these all are just for your knowledge. What are these other types of databases? But we will only be focusing on relational database. Okay. So if you're not understood anything so far, no need to worry. These things, if you understood the story about this library, I'm happy. Know that much and know what is the difference between a database management system and a structured query language. So it is as simple as so जो अगर आपको किसी से कुछ बात निकलवाना है, so you want to get some information from some person, so how will you talk to them? So I am talking to you in English, somebody else might talk to you in Hindi and they wanted to get some answer from you. तो आपको डायरेक्शन पूछना है. तो तब क्या हो गया? So you are the DBMS because you are telling them the direction and the way they are talking to you, वो आपसे जैसे बात कर रहे हैं, that is the language, that is structured query language, as simple as that. These examples तो it's हर जगह यूज होता है, you don't need to worry. It's used everywhere and these uh, as and when you start using these in the future, you'll get to know about them. But for now, relational database is the only thing that we will be working on. I told you that uh, these are the different types of databases, but what makes a database a relational database? Okay. So जैसे कि to say somebody some person satisfies certain criteria, let us say prime minister. So for a person to be prime minister, you have a lot of rules and criteria that is mentioned in constitution of our country, right? That the person should be more than this many years of age, the person should be resident of the country, the person should be a MP of some state, MP of some constituency. जैसे कि there are lot of conditions, right? So in the same way, for a database management system to be a relational database management system, what are the conditions? Okay. So one is, I told you in the beginning, it should store data in tables. So all relational databases store data into tables. Okay. And what are the other certain criteria? Data integrity. So what do you mean by data integrity? So let us say today you come and give me 10 rupees. Okay. And then you say, this is my 10 rupees, keep it with you. And then you come back tomorrow and ask me, how much rupee did I give you yesterday? If I say 5 rupees, so your 5 rupees are gone, right? So a database should not be like that. So अगर आप 10 रुपए मेरे को आज आके देते हो और कल मैं आपको बोलता हूँ कि आपने तो मेरे को कल 5 ही रुपए दिए थे, so that is wrong, right? So whatever you put in the beginning, it should be the same thing. So that is what data integrity means. So if you add something into the database, it should not change unless and until you specifically go and change whatever you've stored into the database. It should not change. So that is data integrity. Okay. What do you mean by data security? So any database that wants to be a relational database should give you certain features, should give you certain commands through which you can access and control rules. Like let us say you are in a company. So every company will have employees and employees के तो salary होता है ना. So let's say you are in a team and you're working and there are 10 people in a team. Even though all of the 10 people might be at the same level, all of them are, let us assume, software engineers only, but all of them will have different salary. So now I don't want these people to know each other's salary, right? So this salary will be stored in a table. So I don't want these people to access this table. They should not have access to this table. So then what I'll do, I'll add certain rules or I'll add certain conditions saying that this table should only be accessed by HR. So why like that? So HR knows how to, HR has access to your salaries and they decide what are the salaries and all, right? So I don't want a software engineer to have access to salaries table. And in the same way, I don't want HR to have access to actual users data. So maybe if you're a software engineer, you might do some modifications to user data, but HR should not have access to users data. So similarly, there should be a form of security control. Basically, only these many people are allowed, only these many people are not allowed, like this. Okay. So it is like a gatekeeper. So you go to the gatekeeper and the gatekeeper has certain rules. The gate only if you pass that rule, the gatekeeper will allow you inside. It'll allow you and it will let you to take it will let you to take whatever information that you wanted. Okay. So next thing is data concurrency. So when I say some database can be a relational database, it should also support concurrency. So what do I mean by concurrency? Multiple people should be able to access it at the same time. So let us say you created Amazon website, and but the problem with Amazon website that you created, it says at a time only one person can order any item. Okay. So then will it be helpful? No, right? It won't be helpful because it is such a big website, and if at a time only one person is ordering, and let's say one person takes 5 minutes to order, so in 1 hour 12 people will be able to order. So in one day how many people will be able to order? 24 into 24 into 12. So that becomes somewhere around what, 24 12 is 240, 260, 270 something. So I don't want a database to behave like that, right? So a database should allow as many requests as possible at the same time. So that is what is data concurrency. So the next top thing that a database that wants to be a relational database should support is data recovery. So at any point, a system can go crash, or at any point in time, a disaster can happen. So if you remember, in 2012, there was a disaster in Japan. There was a nuclear disaster, right? So at that point, there were also some data centers around that place. So then what could have happened is whatever data that is stored into those data centers, that could have been lost. So what a relational database management system should support is it should help you to recover your data whenever such things happen. So it can be through various mechanisms, like every day you'll keep a copy of data. So like just like how banks do it, right? End of the day they do accounts. So for us, the banks open from 9 to 5, but the bank employees go and work even after 9 to 5. From 5 to 7 8, what they do is they manage their accounts, they maintain their books. So they keep tally of everything, and every day they are keeping a record. So similarly, a database, uh, RDBMS should support saying every day at end of the day, it'll create a copy of the data so that even if something happens, even if a database crashes, we have data till some level at least. It is better to have a data than not to have a data at all, right? So something of that sort. And also any system that says that it is an RDBMS should support SQL, should support querying through SQL. Okay. And so there are similarly many such things that if a database wants to be a relational database should support, like it should support, as said, atomicity, consistency, isolation, durability. We'll also talk about this in future when we do little bit of querying and all. Okay. Then it should also be helpful for using lot of users, and it should have good performance as well. Okay. So these are what are the requirements that if I want for a database management system to be a relational database management system. Okay. So other database management systems, they have different features. So like the if you take for example, I was talking about NoSQL, right? NoSQL database management systems. So there the data is not stored in tables. The data is stored in just like example I told, right? They can be stored in column. They can be stored in document databases. There are systems like in-memory database. So in that the data is not even stored into disk. The data is just stored into a RAM. So there are different types of database management systems. So uh, it is not that RDBMS, other DBMS, other database management systems have more feature than RDBMS. So it is dependent. So based on your use case. So if your use case is such that you want to store your data into tables, then you'll use a RDBMS. Or let's say you didn't want to store data into tables and you wanted to store it into an hierarchy. So then you'll use hierarchical database management system. You didn't want that, you wanted to just store documents, you'll use document management system. So but mostly in the computer world, right, the relational databases are there since 1960s, 70s, 80s. Okay, so because of that we are mainly discussing about relational database management systems. These are tried and tested. They are in use since a very very long time. So all the other ones that you see, they were also in use, but they're not that popular as of now. So there are other database management systems that are coming in now, like from last 10-15 years you might have heard a lot about NoSQL. No uh, so it is no structured query language. It is not a relational database manager, it is a different type. And you might have also heard about there are Redis, Memcache and all. Okay, so the different databases will have different uses. As and when you start using them in future, you'll get to know about them. So what does indexing? Indexing means, let us say I have Aadhaar. Take the example of Aadhaar card, right? So how many people are there in India? The population of India is almost like 1.4 billion. So congratulations to us, we have reached the first position now, right? We have also surpassed China. So let us say if every one of us had an Aadhaar card and you go to a bank and they have to search for your Aadhaar card. You give your Aadhaar card number and they have to search for you. So imagine the number of things they have to go through. Almost like 1 billion. Let's say 1 billion users are there in Aadhaar. So searching through 1 billion users is very time consuming, right? So then what we do, we index those rows. So what do I mean by indexing? We store these Aadhaar card numbers in such a way that it is very easy. It is very quick to, let us say if I go tell the database management system, give me an Aadhaar card which is 1234. So it knows how to find this 1234 number very quickly. Okay. So that is what is used by, that is what is indexing. Okay. So what type of DBMS is used by WhatsApp? So even so normally, right, any system, they'll not use only one type of database management systems. It will be a combination of multiple. So in case of WhatsApp, you can use you can use relational as well. So let us say you have a user, and what does a user have? User will have all of his chat history, right? So chat is just a text message. So that text message can be stored in a relational database as well. It can be stored in a NoSQL database as well. So it depends on how they're implemented it, right? But yeah, you can use relational databases to implement chat systems. Okay, so I'll just go ahead. What is data independence? Just 1 second. What is data independence? So what do I mean by data independence is, let us say you are building a relational data. So I told you, right, there are 3-4 examples of relational databases. You have MySQL, you have Postgres SQL, you have Oracle SQL Server, you have Microsoft SQL Server. So there are different types of these MySQL databases, but you should be able to use any one from any another. Okay, so let us say you learned SQL, and now whatever you implemented in MySQL, you are not able to change and use it in Oracle SQL. So that is not a good thing, right? So then what it does is it will do a vendor lock-in. So because you have implemented something in somebody else's way, now you can't go and change it. So that is what is data independence. So the way you are querying the data versus the way you are storing the data is totally different. So both of them should not be combined. They should be separate. That is what is data independence. So SQL, right? So that is structured query language. As we discussed, it is used to interact with relational database management systems, and it is a standard. What do I mean by standard? It is same across each and every database. Relational databases. So SQL is only used to interact with relational databases. To interact with other kind of databases. What do I mean by interact? When you want to talk to the database and get some information, right? So for those kind of different kind of databases have different ways to talk to them. Just like how we have different languages and people are tussling here whether to I talk in Hindi, to I talk in English, should I talk in English, right? So similarly, databases also have this thing. If you want to get information from me, you have to talk to me only in this way. Only then I'll understand, or else I'm not going to give anything. I'll give garbage. Okay, similar like that. So relational databases use structured query languages. structured query language, and it is a standard. ANSI stands for, I think, American National Standard Institute. So what they did is they all of them came together, the Standards Institute, and said, "Key, if you want to talk to a relational database, so you should follow this syntax. You should follow this structure." So similarly, like how we have English dictionary saying this word means this only, right? So these people also came together and said this line, this sentence means this. So that is what is a standard. Basically, any standard is that only, right? So if you're in physics, if you're in chemistry and all, they have different standards. Therefore, what is a meter? How do you define what is a meter? How do you define what is a kilogram? You have a standard for that, right? So similarly, how should a SQL language be? So they have defined certain standards for them. So what is the use of defining certain standards, right? Uh, so one thing is it will keep it will make it very simple for us to port between one user to another user. Like let's say for example, I just gave an example, right? So you're using MySQL and then you started using Oracle SQL Server. So now to query, to talk to MySQL Server and to talk to Oracle SQL Server, if you're using two different languages, it becomes very difficult for you to remember this first language, remember the second language, and talk to them in that language, right? It becomes very difficult to do that kind of a thing, right? So that is why they created a standard that even if you want to talk to, you should be talking to only in this way. Okay, so what all does SQL define? So it gives the syntaxes for whatever, how we want to talk, what are the different ways to talk to a relational database management system. It gives us certain data structures, whatever data structures, like if you come from C++, Java world, you will have int, char, string, float, wide, and all of that, right? So something similar to that, and basic operations that you want to do, like plus, minus, into, divide, right? Those kind of things. Okay. So then also once you specify a standard, right, it becomes very easy for you to grow. So now because everybody is following the same pattern, in future, let's say I wanted to implement something new, I come up and say, add this one feature to your server, to your language. So if everybody else was following different method that they wanted, now it becomes very difficult for all of them to implement. But if all of them follow the same method, it is very easy for them to implement, right? So that is why defining a SQL standard has a lot of all these benefits. Okay, and I think I had the same. Again, what are the benefits of using? It'll reduce the training cost as well. Like uh, when you're in a company, you're a developer, and you're supposed to train yourself to use something, right? So if it is same across everywhere, you don't have to retrain again and again, again and again. So if you know it once, you know it always. Okay, a productivity application, yeah, nothing, all whatever we talked about. Okay, I'll go ahead to the next slide. Hmm. Okay, so in a relational database, in a RDBMS system, like for example MySQL, right? So usually we have three components. One, the main thing is a database. So a database is a place where we store all the components of our database management system. It can be tables, views, functions, triggers, stored procedures, events, etc. So we'll discuss about what all are these things one by one, but just for your idea, a database has all these items. Okay, so next is what else, what is the most important thing of all of these in a database? That is a table. So table is also called a relation in MySQL. Okay, in a relational database management system. How does a table look like? So we had seen in the past, right? We saw that example where the student marks and all. So similarly, so a table has columns. You can, I think it doesn't. Okay, it shows my mouse is there, right? So you have a column. Customer ID is one column, customer name is one column, and status is another column. Columns are called as normal. They're called domains, or also they're also called attributes. And then you have rows. Uh, this customer one is name is Google, status active. So this is one row. A row is also called as tuple. Okay, two row, three row, and total number of columns is called degree, and total number of rows is called cardinality. Sorry, 1 second. Okay, and this customer name here, if you see, it has Google, Amazon, and Apple, right? So a domain is something where you specify that the values will only be within this condition, saying it is a variable which has certain restrictions. Okay. So that is domain, and we'll discuss what is a primary key. For now, just remember that anything that is unique. So how in your classes you would have roll numbers. Roll numbers were unique, right? So you and your friend wouldn't have same roll number everywhere. Or like if you're writing JE exam, if you're writing NEET exam and all, you'll have a unique roll number. So similarly, roll number is that it is used to identify it is used to identify a row. Okay. Yeah, this is enough for now. So these were all the definitions for that. So a table, it's like how cell is a single unit of life. It's most basic, right? So table is the place where all the information or data is stored. Okay. And then we talked about primary key, columns. Columns are also called as attributes. Rows are also called as tuples. Number of columns is degree, and number of rows is cardinality. And a domain, it's a data type with certain constraints. So bear with me. The first session is very theory heavy because this topic is like, initially there's a lot of history to it. There are a lot of different flavors of databases. There are a lot of terminologies that you need to understand. Because of that itself, there are a lot of it's, I know, in the first class itself it's a lot of theory, but bear with me as we go further, maybe in future classes here as well, in first class as well, and in future it will mostly be practical based. Okay. So for first 1 or 2 classes, and in future when you're doing data modeling and all, it will be theory, but it will be a mix of theory as well as practical. I'll try to keep it as interactive as possible. Okay. So let's move ahead. We talked about SQL. What is SQL? SQL is used to talk to a database, talk to a relational database management system. Okay. So how do we talk to a relational database management system? So there are different ways to talk to it. What do I mean by different ways? Take for example, let us say you are working. No, not even working. You are at a place and you want to get something done from some other person. So if you have authority, then you'll go and tell that person, hey, do it, or do it as I say. With authority, you will say it, right? But let us say instead that person is somebody who is more well versed than you, or who is more experienced than you, then you'll go and request to that person saying, sir, please kar do. You'll haath jod ke kar do. I say you'll do that, right? So similarly, there are different ways that you can talk to a database management system. So to perform different operations based on the need, depending on the need, you have to oh, I'm telling here talk to every time. By talk to, I mean that it's a way of you write some statements, you write some queries, and that is how you'll interact with the database. Okay. So the SQL is defined into 4 different classifications in terms of language that I told you, right? DDL, DML, DCL, and TCL. So first one is data definition language. So what do I mean by data definition language? So it is used to create the structure of tables, indexes, procedures, everything. So I showed you here that this is a table, right? So how do I create this table in a database? Okay. So yeah, we talked about library. So I told that library guys work will become very easy if you start using relational database or database management system. But how will that guy be able to create a database, create a table in the first place? Okay. So for that, we have commands like create table, alter table, drop table, create index, drop index. Okay. So I'm just giving you an overview. So you don't have to remember these keywords now or remember these statements now. So it is just to give you an idea of what all kind of languages are there, what all kind of different keywords are there in SQL. When we actually dive in deep about all these keywords, that time I'll explain to you how to use them, how to like create table is there here, right? So how to create a table, how to alter a table, drop a table, and what do they actually mean. So for now, it is just a basic overview of what are the different options available for data definition language. Okay. So, and data definition language is mostly executed by data administrators. So what do I mean by database administrators? It is the people who are in power. Like let us say, uh, mm, take for example librarian only. Okay. So in library there will be head librarian, right? Head librarian, and then there are other normal people who are users. So users will always be wanting to read or read. What do I mean by read? They'll want to look at the list of books that are available. Let's say I want to go search for all Chetan Bhagat novels. So I'll just search by author Chetan Bhagat and it'll show me all the novels written by him. But I should not have access to go and add some novel in Chetan Bhagat's name, right? So let's say I randomly go and create something and add it in his name. So that is not what I should do. So basically, the database administrators are the people who have the control of the database. So they are the ones who actually write into the database. So there are two things, right? There's a person, somebody to read from the database, to look up in the database, somebody has to input, add some information to it. So the information addition part, that is mostly done by uh, database administrators. Here the information addition is about how to, what is a table, so how to create a table, what are the tables that are created. So that is all done by database administrators. And because it is a very it is done by database administrators, it needs certain privilege. Any random person cannot go and create a table or drop a table. Well, let's take for example, let us say you're working as an intern in some company, and then on your first day only you deleted a table. That should not happen, right? So that is why at the first place you'll not be given access to these kind of commands in the first place. So that is why when I said database administrators or developers, only people who are very, who are like top level, or maybe managers, or who are people who are very important, only they have access, so that people don't misuse all these kind of commands. Okay. And these queries are used, not used much frequently. What do I mean by not used much frequently? Because when you create a table once, उसके बाद आप जाके कुछ नहीं करोगे ना उसके साथ. Table बनाया, whatever the table is done, it is done. So later on you'll only add information to it. Information as in, like in case of library, you'll keep adding books to it, but you will not delete the table or change a new column or add a new column into the table. So that is why data definition language is used little less frequently. Okay. So the next thing is DML, that is data manipulation language. Okay. So what do I mean by data manipulation language? This is where most of the stuff happens in SQL. These are the kind of queries that are used more frequently, like select, insert, update, delete. Let us say you want to read all the columns in a table. Let us say you want to fetch all the students whose marks are more than 60%. Any kind of query that you want to do, all of it is done using these kind of commands. By query, I don't just mean reading. Let us say you also want to insert a new row into a table. So for that also use data manipulation language. So as the name only suggests, right? Data definition. यहाँ पे what you're doing, you're defining the data. So you're defining the structure of the data here. Data manipulation. So you're adding or removing some kind of information, some kind of data. Okay. And these are executed more frequently than data definition language. Okay. Okay, I'll go to the next one. That is data control language. Okay. So in the previous, here I was saying, right, people have access, people have rules, only certain people have access. So how do I do that? So that is done by using data control language. So what happens in data control language? So these are a set of commands that you can use to give access to people. So like you can see there is grant, there is revoke, there is create. Grant matlab, what do I mean by grant? Grant, see, it is written grant select on employees to public. So what this means, grant select keyword permission to public. Public is a kind of role. Revoke select on employees from public. So these are kind of, grant as basic pure English, granting a permission, revoking a permission, creating roles and all. Okay. So these kind of languages are used to enforce security and compliance. Compliance means uh, it's like you get a lot of rules and all from businesses, right? Or you get a lot of rules from government as well. So government says everybody has to follow this rule, so then you have to add it here. Okay. So the other one is transaction control language. So most of the RDBMS support this transaction control language. So transaction, what do I mean by transaction? Basically, I'll give a small example. So we'll also be covering about what is a transaction in the future, but just to give you a small example. Okay. um, so let us say you go to a bank, or for uh, not you go to a bank and you want to withdraw money from your account and put it into your friend's account. Let's say I'm Guruprasad. My friend name is Aditya. So I want to take out 10 rupees from my account and add another 10 rupees to Aditya's account. So what do? I go to bank, I write a withdrawal slip, account transfer, money transfer slip, and I give it to the person who is sitting at the bank. So now let's say he starts executing So only what happens is first part of the transaction is proper. So he has deducted 10 rupees from my account. So now if he stops there itself, is it a proper transaction? No, right? It is not a proper transaction because he has cut 10 rupees from my account, but he has not added 10 rupees to my friend's account. So when will this transaction be complete? The transaction will only be complete when my account shows minus 10 and my friend Aditya's account shows plus 10, whatever was his previous balance plus 10. So only then this act of sending money from my account to Aditya's account is complete. So here, if you see, there are two things happening, right? One is the money is getting cut from my account. Other is the money is being credited to my friend's account. So both of these together have the capacity to say whether the transaction completed or no. So even if one of them fails, I have to say the transaction did not complete. But both are two different operations, right? So how do I make that kind of a thing in SQL? So that is done using transactions. So there are keywords for transaction, that is roll, commit, save, roll back, and all. So we'll also discuss about these when we are learning more about transactions. Okay. So basically there are four types of uh, classification of SQL languages, that is data definition language, data manipulation language, data control language, and then your transaction control language. Languages. So now I was talking, right? There are two types of. There are many famous, but I've mostly people use these both. One is MySQL, other is PostgreSQL. Okay, so whatever we'll be discussing, it'll mostly be about MySQL. As a part of this curriculum, we are covering MySQL only. Okay, there is not much difference. The language that we use to talk to, both of them use a structured query language to interact with them. There might be slight differences, but you guys don't need to worry about those differences at all. आपके लिए दोनों सब सेम ही है, ठीक है? Both of them are same for you. So now let us talk about data types supported by MySQL. So what do I mean by data types? The data is stored in different formats, right? Like you have numbers, you can have string, you can have year. So like for example, rupees is different, date is different, time is different. So when you say, tell me what is the time, will you say 100 rupees? No, right? When somebody asks you what is the time, you'll tell them it's 6 o'clock, it's 7 o'clock. Or what is the date, you'll tell today is, what is today? Today is 23rd of Jan. So you'll tell that. If somebody asks what is today's date, you will not tell 23.4 point something. Okay. So there is categorization. So everywhere in computer science, data is categorized into different formats. Okay. So mostly it is same. It's like there are few broad categories that I have specified in the presentation. That is, there are string data types, numeric data types, and date and time data types. What do I mean by string data types? Somebody was asking me, right? How do I, what does WhatsApp uses? So in WhatsApp, whatever you type, it is string, right? So the chat that you do with your friends, or the chatting that you do, it is, some of it is string, some of it is images, some of it is videos. But you can store your chat in the string. Then you also have date and time. So when the chat was sent. Yeah, collection of facts. Okay, so you have the date and time when the message was sent. So that will be stored in date and time data types. Okay, and then you have numeric data types. By what I mean by numeric, in numeric it can be again a lot of different ones. So like let's say you just have integers, 1 2 3 4 minus 1 minus 2 minus 3 minus 4. Then you can have floating point numbers, that is 1.2345, like this. Then you have double is like very large. So there are different types of data types that we use in MySQL as well. So I had shown you that these are so one second, I went to back. Okay, so here, right, you can see customer ID, it's a number. Customer name, it's a string, and then status is also a string. So basically every column will have a data type. So we use this data type to say that, okay, the data inside this is a number, or the data inside this is a string. So how will these data types help us? One is, if there is a column, I can surely say that what all can exist in this column, right? So in a column of age, let us say I have a student and then I have student age. So in the column of age, I can surely say that it will be 1, 2, 3, 4 to 60, 70, right? It will never be minus, right? You'll never have age and minus. So I can surely say that I can specify the data type as integer with condition that it is above 0. So using data types helps us classify what is the data present inside this. What is the data present inside a column? And it also helps us to know how much data, how much storage space will this take. Like for example, integer is 4 bytes, some places it's 2 bytes, some places it is 4 bytes, whereas float is much larger in size, whereas double is even larger in size. String and all are string also, there is different options. So there is char, there is var char, so there are different flavors of it. So even for all of them, the size is always different, right? And also let us say you want to store images inside MySQL. So we don't encourage people storing images inside MySQL and all, because MySQL is used for storing only data. So for images and all, we use different kind of storage solutions. Like you might have heard Amazon S3 buckets, or you might have heard Azure storage and all. So we use so images and all are different kind of data types. So there we don't usually store them in MySQL, but you can also store them in MySQL. There is a data type called as Blob, binary object store. So you can use those to store like images and all in the MySQL. Okay. I'll just go through the example. So there are a lot of I've ditto taken this photo from from a website. So you can see there is tiny int, small int, medium int, big int, float, double, decimal. So name, you should be able to identify from name only. See, tiny int is very small number integer, small int is slightly bigger, medium int is slightly bigger than that, int is normal int, and then big int has even more larger size. Then you have float. Float is again a point value. Double is even more bigger, and then you have just decimal. Decimal is again, what is the, let's say if you take for example student percentages, right? You don't want them to do it more than what like 91.45. You don't want him to say 91.45315. That is not what I want, right? So I can say decimal with only up till two decimal places, something like that. So you can, I don't want you to remember all these numbers also. You should just understand, like tiny int means this. You should, whenever you're creating a table, right? You should know, okay, let us say I want to store age. Okay. So then it doesn't make sense to use big int, right? Can somebody's age be from 0 to whatever it is, 118 trillion, maybe something, whatever, 18,44444? No, right? So I don't want to waste space by saying age is a type of big int. I can keep it tiny int, right? 20 to 255 size. So all the ages will come within this, unless somebody has lived up to 1,000 years and all. Then you can go and say, I'll not use tiny int. Instead, I'll use small int. Okay. So uh, I think then when do you use big int and all? Let us say you want to store bank accounts, right? In bank accounts, if you want to store, there you wouldn't use big int. You'll use double and float values to store bank money, because it will be in points, right? So it's like when you have 1.2 rupees, 1.3, 1.4, like that. So based on the use case, whenever whenever you're creating a table, you have to decide, I have this column, so what are the values that I can expect into this column? What kind of numbers can I expect? What is the maximum value that I can expect? What is the minimum value that I can expect? So you have to use your mind and decide. Okay, so this is the maximum value. The maximum values is, let's say, 10 lakh. It is distance from population. Let's take population only, right? So let's take population. So population of the world is around, okay, there's some background noise. Just give me 2 minutes. So population of the world is what? Around 4 billion, 5 billion. So there, I cannot store it in small int. Small int is just 65,535. I cannot store it in small int. I also cannot store it in medium int. Medium int also. I'll only need big int to say the population of a country is so and so, I'll need big int. So that time I should make a choice that I want big int in future. I want to use big int. Okay. So yeah, let's say you have a use case where initially you didn't expect that the column will change. Then in future, yeah, you can modify it. You can say convert this from int to big int. That is possible. Okay. I think I answered your question, Uday. So there are some more data types in terms of int only: bit, bool, and boolean. So bool and boolean are used to store 1 and 0. 1 is true and 0 is false. And bit is again bit values. Like 1 bit is 0 or 1, 0 or 1 only again, right? So again, bit is used for storing that. Then you have data types. So date, again, you'll have year, date time, timestamp. So year is 2 or 4, date is again, you can have you can specify the format also, what format you want it to. And timestamp, timestamp is, it starts from 1970, and then from there you can go all the way till I think 2038. Okay, not sure why 2038, I'll have to see. Okay. So then we have again, so this was int, and you have string data types. Okay. So even in string, it's all very similar. Char is where the size is always fixed. Char can have a maximum size of 255. Varchar is, you can specify different sizes for it. Okay. See, that's a variable length string, and if char is, it is always 256. Then you have tiny text, medium text, long text. So let us say if it is tweet. So Twitter is how many characters? 140 characters, right? So people don't you can't tweet more than 140 characters in Twitter. So that time you can use tiny text for tweets. But let us say it's in a LinkedIn message, LinkedIn post. So then 65,000, I think 65,000 should be fine. But let us say it is a novel. It is a content of a novel. Somebody has written a novel, and then it is the information inside that as a novel. So then you might need medium text or long text. Okay. So binary and var binary is again, so instead of storing it as character, you store it as binary values. Okay. Then enum is, let us say, like take for example, what do I mean? Enum is like you only have certain values. So when you talk about gender, right? Gender is male, female, and few other extra. So it will not change from that, right? It will always be one of those. So it can be that. So enum is that kind of a data type where you specify in advance only that these are the possible values from which I can have the input as. Let's, like for example, if I take countries, the name of countries is always fixed, right? So I can say in country column, it will only be one of these. It will either, let's say, leave country, I'll take continents. So there are only 7 continents, right? Asia, Africa, North America, South America, Antarctica, 7 continents. So a person will always belong to one of the 7 continents. So enum is a way to specify that the inputs can only be one of these. Okay. Set is also a similar type. It takes 1 2 3 4 8 bytes, and it also can store a maximum 64 members. Okay. And set is also again, it is also saying like you'd have learned set in maths, right? Where distinct type of values. Set is also for something like that. And somebody was asking me, right, how to store images and all, and how to store images and all. So you can use this tiny blob, medium blob, and long blob. So your images and all, images, videos, and all, they can be stored as blobs inside MySQL. Okay. Then spatial data types. So MySQL also supports some extra data types, like you can read through. Let's say you wanted to store a point, you wanted to store a line. Line is like you have a equation for a line, right, where you have 2 3 points, and then the multi-line, multi-string. So if in future you need any of these kind of requirements, you can use these as well. And then we can also store JSON inside MySQL. So previously they didn't have this feature. It has come in like few years back, I think, where you can store a whole JSON. What do I mean by JSON? JSON is JavaScript object notification. Uh, Okay, I think I should have shown you some example of JSON. I'll show that to you, but you can also store JSON data inside MySQL databases. Mm, okay, not able to get what you're saying, but Oracle SQL or MySQL, which is better? I've not used Oracle SQL to say it's all. Most of the development that I've done it in MySQL only. But they should be very similar, not much difference. So when it comes to for practicing and all that, it is very similar, not much difference. But when you're using it for actual real life application, right? Then what happens is you might need performance tuning. Let us say one database is better for writes. What do I mean by writes? In one you can input data very fast. In one you can output read data very fast. So depends on that. Like for example, if you take stocks, right? Not stocks is not a right example. Where is some example where you're writing data very fast? Reading data very fast, you can take for example the Instagram posts, right? So the number of people who are I'm giving a different example, but try to understand. The number of people who are posting onto Instagram is very less, but the number of people who are seeing those posts is very high, right? So that is where there are a lot of reads, but there can be some place where there are a lot of writes. So this is one criteria, or there can be a criteria where one of them is very good at sharding, one of them scales better. So different criteria, but for practice, for development and all, it doesn't matter. Both of them are almost same. Okay, what is a JSON data type? So you would have seen something like this, right? So where you have open bracket, you have a key and value. This is what a JSON looks like. It's called JavaScript object notification. So all the communication between server and client and all happens through, most of the time it happens through JSON objects. So let's talk about variables. So what are variables? Variables are used to store data in runtime. What do I mean by runtime? So whatever data we were talking about previously, right? Columns and rows, that is persisted in the data. So it is stored onto the disk. But let us say when I'm running MySQL or when I'm running program, right? I want to use certain values, like certain constants, maybe certain values that I have stored somewhere. I want to use them while running MySQL queries. So for that, I'll use MySQL variables. Okay. And there is also another reason of using variables. Let us say you had some constant, let us call it uh, adult. So adult age. Okay. So adult age was greater than 21 in your case. Uh, some reason you made it 21. So now everywhere, if I just say 21, 21, 21, so people won't understand what does that 21 value mean. So what I can do is I can give it a name. I can say adult age and give it 28, 21, and then I can, wherever I'm referencing it in future, so that becomes, I can refer it via the variable name. Okay. So then it becomes easy to read, and it can be used at a lot of different places, right? So in MySQL there are different types of variables. So there are three basically. One is user defined, local, and system variable. Okay. So what is user defined variable? So like just when I said you want to pass some value across the MySQL statements and you want to store it when you're running code, so that time you use user defined variable. They can be stored and retrieved using set and select command, and they starts with an @ symbol. They not case sensitive. So a user defined variable by one person cannot be used by other person and all. So I'll just show you an example what I'm trying to say. So how we are creating a variable? So we use set, and then whatever is the variable name, we use @ symbol and store the value. Okay. And these names are case insensitive. What do I mean by case insensitive? Even if you put it in capital letters or in small letters, it will give the same value. It doesn't change. Okay. Yeah. So let's say I do set. You're able to see the screen, right? Set let's call it adult age. So equal to 24. Okay. So I run the query. How do we run? I do a control enter. Okay. So now run the query. If you should see here down somewhere, it says there is a green arrow here, green tick here saying it has been succeeded. Okay. So now if I want to print it, if I do select the rate adult, so this one, adult age, right? You can see it shows 24, right? It is small. I'm not able to increase its size, but You can see here it says 24. So instead of doing this, no, if I do adult age, it doesn't matter. It will still show me 24. Correct? And I can also use this. This also doesn't matter. So that is it is the select statement is also case insensitive. Set is also case insensitive. So if I do set adult age now to be 21, so now it will change it to 21. Now if I do select adult age, it says 21, right? I can even change again here. Okay. By case insensitive, I meant that this can be written in capital letters or small letters. This can be written in capital letters or small letters. It doesn't matter to MySQL. It considers all of them as same. And it is a convention, but it is a convention to write the statements, SQL statements, that is select, set, whatever comes in the beginning, right? Select from where and all of that with capital letters. So that the other thing is small letters and this is capital. Okay. So it's just a convention. So we talked about user defined variables. There is something also called as local variables. I had explained in the beginning that there is something called as stored procedures or functions that are used inside SQL. So the local variables are kind of variables that are used when you're writing functions. You don't have at keyword for it, and they're created using declare, and they have a default data type and all as well. But I'll not go in depth about this for now because we won't be able to understand. Also, when we are creating functions, and all that time we'll make use of it. Okay. So then there are other variables that are called as system variables. So I talked about user defined variables. User defined variables are variables that are defined by you, that you are saying you want to use some value. System defined variables are variables that are defined by MySQL itself. So there can be many configuration values, right? So let us say MySQL wants to do some processing in the background. So for that, it may have a value saying after how many seconds do I need to process something do I need to process? Let's say it has a it has a task which is running and the task runs every 10 minutes. So it has to be stored somewhere, right? That 10 minutes. Let's say I want to change it to 5 minutes now. So how do I do? There is a way to access all the system variables. That is, if you do show variables, it will show you. And then you can access the system variables using two at symbols, at, and then the name of the variable. For user defined, it was one at and then the name of the variable. For system defined, it is two ats and name of the variable. So if I do, I don't remember the names of show variables. Do enter. So you can see here, right? There are a lot of values. This is, if you see here side. Okay. So let us say I want to access one of them. Let's say socket is a value. If I want to access socket, what I'll do is I'll do select, similar to how we did for user defined variables. Because it is system defined variable, I'll use two at and then socket. So now if I do shift control enter, see, it shows MySQL, right? I can also change this. I don't want to change. We can also change it again using set at its socket and then equal to whatever I value I want to. Okay, not changing it for now, but you can also change it, right? So this is system variables. Next, we'll talk about select statement. What is the time? Okay, I'll just before we go to, I'll just show you one single. We'll just complete one statement. So what is a select statement? So in SQL, right, for any data manipulation, you'll be using select statement most of the times. That's how I've written. It's like a bread and butter of databases. If you are someone who uses MySQL, no, this becomes your bread and butter. So what do I mean by bread and butter? You have to. This is it is used everywhere. So to read any data from MySQL tables, read any data from any SQL DMS database management system tables, we use select statement. Okay. So what do I mean by that? I'll show you in a while. But what is the syntax? Syntax is you write select and then you write name of the columns that are there in the table and then you write from. Okay. From and what table are the columns in. Okay. So this is what is the syntax of select statement. Just to give an example here. Okay. So I have a table here called employee details. Okay. So just to show you. So if I show here, right? Employee details is a table and it has these many columns: employee ID, employee name, employee city, employee salary, and employee penalty. Okay. So now if I wanted to show only employee name, all employee names from the table, what I'll do, select, I'll just keep it capital, select, it is emp and then name from the name of the table. What is the name of the table? The name of the table is employee details. Okay. So now if I run this, what happened? It shows 1 second. No database selected. 1 second. No? Don't need to worry about this. Okay. You can see here, right? So now from this table, I'm able to see employee name. So who all are the employees? Anuj, Tushar, Vivek, Shivam, Rohit, all these names. So what I've done, select one column from this table. Okay, let us say I wanted to select two columns, employee name and to which city they belong to. So you can see in the table here, employee city is there, right? So I'll do EMP CITY. Okay, so I do control enter. Now the table also shows what is the name. Anuj Ghaziabad, Tushar is from Lucknow, Vivek is from Kolkata, Shivam is from Goa. Okay, so you're understanding, right? So select two columns, employee name and employee city from employee details. From this is a table name. So let us say I wanted to select everything, select all columns. So there is a special key for that. That is select star from what was the table name? Employee details. Okay. So now when I do a run, you can see, right? So now you see all the tables. Select star from employee details. Star give me all the columns. Employee ID, employee name, employee city, employee salary, employee penalty. The spelling is wrong here. But if you see in this table, right, employee details is a table and that table only had 5 columns, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So at any point in time, if I want to refer all the columns in a table, I just do select star. Cool. So it might be difficult for you guys to install this and then start practicing. So I came across a very good website. Just show it to you. Wait. So it was this Learn SQL online practice session. Okay. So this is a similar website, some website that I found online. So it has patients, admissions, doctors, and these names. So if you do select this, you can practice it. I'll share this link. So you should select star. You can also write it on the same line. Okay. I was writing it on a different line just to make it look proper. Select star from patient. All of the queries should end with a semicolon. Okay. So now if I do control enter, it is showing me all the values, right? This is from patient's table. Patient ID, first name, last name, gender, birth, date, city, province, and all. So if I want to do the same thing from other table, they have admissions, seeing all the tables. But let us say I wanted to only do get one value from admissions table. Say I wanted to get the patient ID, and then I had a discharge date. So now if I do control enter, it should only show 2 columns. It's showing only 2 columns, right? Patient ID and discharge date. So and as I mentioned, this can also be small. So it itself is doing it. Okay, it is auto correcting it. But if I show it in MySQL, right? Even if you write it as small letters, it is fine. And you can also write it on different lines. The same thing we have selected. So, all right. I think we discussed about select statement, select column from tab. What if I want to use all the columns? Then I do select star from the table name. Okay. I'll also share the link of this site. You can practice just whatever we are basic things you can practice. All select queries and all can be practiced. We'll end for today. Yeah. I think somebody told. 20 minutes are there, so I'll take questions. You can get active on chat. I'll start taking questions. So just before that, we'll just recap over whatever we discussed today. We discussed a lot. I need to go and drink water now. So we are starting with SQL. I just gave an intro about myself. So we are dividing the course into two. One is understanding MySQL, learning how to write queries and all. Then we we are going to design data models. Then I gave an example of library. Then we discussed about what is the difference between a DBMS and a SQL. SQL is like a language and DBMS is like a database management system. Like DBMS was a person, SQL was a language from where somebody was coming and asking you how to find a route to a place, like that. Then users of DBMS were all we are using. Then what are the different types of database management systems? Then we discussed about all these kind of management systems. Then we had different what all is needed and necessary for a database to be a relational database management system. We discussed this. Then SQL, what is the use of having a standard? What is a database? What are there in a database? And table, what are some common keywords that we use for a table? Then different types of data languages in SQL: data definition language, data manipulation language, data control language, transaction control language. Then I told you what are the famous RDBMSs, data types. Then we had variables, user defined, local, system defined. Then we discussed select statement. Wow. So just I want people to remember we did a 2-hour class, and before going, you should not forget what we have discussed. Yeah, I'll take the suggestion, daily give challenges. Yeah. Main difference between system defined variable and a user defined variable. System defined variable is you had that thing, right, where you use two @ symbols, and system defined variables are specifically used by MySQL to for its uses. Like it has some meaning to MySQL. User defined variables, it won't have any meaning to MySQL. It is you only you know it. System defined variables. I'm on different screen. Kya? 1 second. I'm seeing the chat and talking, so forgive me. Yep. System defined variable, they can be used across all the users. Whereas I told, right, user defined variable is only for one person. System defined variable, just like the name says, right, user is one user and system is whole system. So system defined variables can be used by everybody, all the users in a MySQL database, and user defined is that, and then two @symbols. Other than that, everything else is same. Okay. Then how you can create a database, create table. So because to create a table and to create a database, right, you need in-depth knowledge. What do I mean by in-depth knowledge? You need to understand what are different queries, what are different data types and all. So first I'll work as much as possible with select queries, so that you are fully well versed, you're fully equipped and ready to write any select queries, like any complex select queries. So once we have understood how to read properly, then we'll write. Okay, it's like for a kid, you tell it what is A, what is B in the beginning, right? Only then you give it a slate and ask it to draw A, B, and like that. So we will first understand how to fetch data from tables. Only then we will we'll see how to insert data into tables, update data into tables, and then create our own tables. Okay, I think so that you should not like it should be a continuous flow. If I teach one thing and directly jump to other, what happens is the flow is broken. Okay, so I don't want that flow to be broken. I'll, as much as possible, I'll try to maintain that thread of flow so that you don't miss out. You don't feel like aaj kuch sikha rahe the, kal kuch sikha rahe. It should be continuous. Okay. Then somebody had asked me what database we used to store um, placements. So what type of question asked in interview? So but lot of the questions. So this is very good thing. So here a lot of questions can be asked in interview. So the most common is this, right? You have these four, right? Data definition language, data manipulation language, data control, and transaction control. So this is very commonly asked in interviews. Like what is difference between data manipulation, data control, and they'll ask you give some examples of queries, give some examples of statements for control language, grant, revoke, create. Give some example of manipulation, select, insert, update, delete. So this can be an interview question. Then this won't be interview. This can be an interview question. What all what all are the characteristics that are needed for a DBMS to be an RDBMS? Then This can be an interview question. What are the different types of database management systems? So when you actually start working more and more, right, then you'll actually use these and you'll be able to make out the differences. What is the difference between a relation? Hierarchical and network are not used that much, but we use many document databases are used, columnar databases are used, NoSQL databases are used, in-memory databases are used. All these four ones at the end, right? They are used currently also. A lot of places. This is useful. This is no. This is basic. Then I think the data types and all, they won't be interview questions. I don't think they'll be interview questions. Yep. Variables also not necessarily. The important thing is you should be able to understand these four. Be able to categorize. Select, where does select belong? Select belongs to manipulation language. Create, where does create belong? Create belongs to definition language. That's it. I hope it was helpful, guys. So any any improvements or anything that you feel you want to, you can just put it in the comments itself. Thank you.